afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural lecture of the 2026 Distinguished Lecture Series hosted by the Department of Religious Study at the University of West. My name is Miroj Sakya, and I'm Chair and Associate Professor in the Department of Religious Study. The Department of Religious Study has been organizing Distinguished Guest Lecture Series since fall of 2020. And we are proud to celebrate 5 years of this initiative. Our mission throughout this time has been to foster a deeper understanding of religious tradition, promote intellectual exchange, and engage our community with scholars who are shaping the future of religious study. It is both a privilege and great honor to introduce our distinguished guest speaker for today, Dr. Reverend Madipol Bimalajoti Thero, who has traveled all the way from Hong Kong to be with us. Dr. Bimalajoti is a Hong Kong RGC Junior Research Fellow at the Center of Buddhist Studies, Faculty of Art at the University of Hong Kong. Previously, he served as a senior lecturer at Bhikkhu University of Sri Lanka, as well as a temporary and visiting lecturer at the University of Peridenia, Sri Lanka. He completed his PhD in Buddhist Studies at the University of Hong Kong in 2024 and hold a MPhil degree from 2019. And his research focused primarily on Theravāda Buddhism with an emphasis on text, Vinaya, ritual, history, as well as textual criticism, editing, and translating Pali texts. So the topic of today's lecture is From Preservation to Veneration, the cult of the palm leaf manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Dr. Reverend Madipol Bimalajoti Thero.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. Dear venerables, distinguished professors, and fellow scholars, it is a great pleasure and honor to deliver this lecture as part of the 2026 Distinguished Lecture Series organized by the Department of Religious Studies at the University of the West. And in particular, I'm really grateful to Professor Miroj Sakya for the invitation and also for giving me the opportunity to share my talk with you today. Today my lecture title is From Preservation to Veneration, the Cult of the Palm Leaf Manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism. In this talk, mainly I focus on the Theravāda context in Sri Lanka, and I'm not going to focus on the other Theravāda countries. So my main focus is the palm leaf manuscript culture in Theravāda Buddhism in Sri Lanka. And in this talk, I explore the term, what I term the cult of the palm leaf manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism, in particular in Sri Lanka, an approach that invite us to rethink the Theravāda palm leaf manuscript not only function as the text, but also as ritually venerated, materially potent embodiment of the Dhamma. So currently I am actually working on the cult of the palm leaf manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism in Sri Lanka for my postdoctoral project at the University of Hong Kong. So this lecture also related to my ongoing postdoctoral project. So as Professor Miroj introduced, I am Bimalajoti, an RGC Junior Research Fellow at the University of Hong Kong. So this is the lecture outline of my talk today. So let me give a brief introduction to my talk first. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this lecture examines what I term the cult of the palm leaf manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism in Sri Lanka. And we know that Sri Lanka has a unique and rich palm leaf manuscript culture, which is deeply intertwined with South and Southeast Asian identities. So So these palm leaf manuscripts are more than texts, they are living traditions. So these palm leaf manuscripts function in two central dimensions in religious and cultural context as source of religious knowledge and as object of veneration. In particular, we know that the Mahayana and Vajrayana scholars have coined the concept, the cult of the book, to describe the significance attributed to physical scriptures as sacred object of worship. So in my research project and also in this lecture, I reframed this concept as the cult of the palm leaf manuscript in order to better reflect the Theravāda context and also highlight its preservation, ritual practices, and material significance of palm leaf manuscript culture in Sri Lanka. And also, rituals surrounding palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka embody devotion, merit making, and communal identity, linking material culture with spiritual practices. So in this lecture, I argue that the preservation, recopying, and care of palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka constitute a system of ritual devotion. And also, this lecture invites us to rethink the assumption of the Theravāda Buddhism treat texts only as source of doctrine rather than as sacred ritually potent objects. So let me little elaborate the conceptual frame. So we know that the Skupan, the scholar who introduced the cult of the book, and he says that the cult of the book is one of the important elements of Mahayana Buddhism, which emphasizes worship of written texts. And we know that the popular sutras such as Lotus Sutra and Diamond Sutra became object of pious copying. And in particular, they also considered embodiment of Dharma relic, so Dhamma relic, and reverently deposited inside the stupas. And this Skupan says that this cult of the book did not develop in isolation. It also has some influence from the cult of the relic and also cult of the stupa. So he says, the first point which emerges from a study of the cult of the book in the Ashtasahasrika Prajnaparamita and Saddharma Pundarika and in our other sources is that this cult did not develop in isolation. It had to contend at every step with the historical priority and the dominance of the stupa and relic cult of early Buddhism. But in this talk, I'm not going to focus on the Mahayana cult of the book, but I mainly focus on the cult of the manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism in Sri Lanka. So I use the term, the cult of the palm leaf manuscript here to refer to a series of devotional activities and rituals involved in preservation, recopying, distribution, donation, and maintenance of palm leaf manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism in Sri Lanka. So we know that we have three main branches of Buddhism, what we call the Theravāda, Mahayana and Vajrayana. And the Theravāda is the oldest surviving Buddhist school or tradition, which is dominant in South and Southeast Asia, including Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia, and so on. So the Theravāda is also known as Theravāda, which is the Sanskrit word, and also it is named as Vibhajyavāda in the school. So when we look at the lineage of the Theravāda Buddhism, it goes back to the Buddha Shakyamuni and also Elder Mahakassapa to ancient Mahavihara tradition, and it is well documented in the Pali commentaries by the Theravāda commentators. So therefore, Theravāda can be said to ground itself in a heritage traced to the Gautama Buddha and to an interpretation of his legacy shaped by the teachers who compiled commentaries on the Pali canon. So the establishment of the Theravāda Buddhism in Sri Lanka goes back to the 3rd century BC, which was a result of the Third Buddhist Council, and in particular they attempted to preserve the original form of Theravāda canon throughout its history. So when we consider about the Theravāda canon, so we know that they preserved this Theravāda canon through oral tradition, Bhanaka tradition. Bhanakas means those who preserve the teachings of the Buddha through oral tradition. So so after the demise of the Buddha, so this is how they preserved until the 1st century BC. And in the 1st century BC, they transcribed the teachings of the Buddha in palm leaf manuscript or books for two key reasons. The first one is the 12-year famine in the 1st century BC in Sri Lanka. So we know that because of this famine, many monks and also lay people died, and therefore they faced challenges to preserve the Theravāda canon. And that is called in Sinhalese as Beminitiya Sagataya. And the second reason is that when we look at the Sri Lankan monastic context, in Anuradhapura period, we can see three main fraternities, what we call Mahavihara tradition, or Mahavihara fraternity, Abhayagiri and Jetavana. The Mahavihara was the orthodox fraternity, those who attempted to preserve the original form of teaching. Apart from that, the Abhayagiri and the Jetavana traditions were influenced with the Mahayana and Vajrayana teachings, and therefore this orthodox Mahavihara tradition attempted to preserve the original form of teaching by transcribing in palm leaf manuscript. So the first reason is more important, the 12-year famine, and this was recorded in the Mahavamsa, which is the great chronicle of the island, and it says, great wise monks in the past conveyed the text of the three baskets and its commentaries orally. Having observed the decreasing number of beings, the monks who assembled wrote them down in palm leaf manuscript or books for the sake of the longevity of the Dhamma. That is the more important here, for the sake of the longevity of the Dhamma. So therefore this Mahavihara tradition preserved the teachings of the Buddha through repeated recopying using this palm leaf manuscript to the present. So the main material that they use is the palm leaf manuscript. We know that the South and Southeast Asians use this palm leaf to write religious and cultural and historical texts. So therefore the palm leaf is a generic term, and therefore the region utilizes different names for the palm leaves. So therefore it has a vernacular names, such as in Sri Lanka they named as Ola leaves, in Thailand Lan, in Burma Lontar, in India Thala, Srithala or Karalika. Sri Lanka is also used this term Thala. So the palm leaf manuscript treasured artifacts of religious and cultural heritage are preserved in collections worldwide. So in the palm leaf manuscript, the subject include like religious texts, historical and Ayurvedic texts, astrology and so on. So there are more than 200 variety of palm trees around the world, but mostly two most common palm trees used for making palm leaf manuscripts, such as palm palm and also teleport palm. So the Sinhala word for the palm leaf manuscript is puskola, which means pipe leaves or sweep leaves. In particular, we can find folk stories related to the palm trees in Sri Lanka, because they believe that this palm tree was given by the Lord of the God, which means the Sakradeva, in order to preserve the teachings of the Buddha. So the palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka function as repositories of Buddhist texts and traditional knowledge, as I mentioned earlier, including Ayurvedic texts, astrology, traditional architecture and so on. So therefore Sri Lankan palm leaf manuscript and manuscript collections offer critical insight into how materiality and merit function as key variables in reading and writing the teachings of the Buddha. And the production of a palm leaf manuscript is a communal process and highly meritorious deed in the Sri Lankan context. And also it entails traditional knowledge, skills and also ritual practices. At the later part of this presentation, I present the ritual practices associated with the palm leaf manuscript production in order to better understand the cultic practices associated with this culture. So when you look at a palm leaf manuscript, you can see like four main components. The first one is the wooden board, kava it is called in Sinhalese as kamba, and written palm leaves, and a string. The string helps to tie the palm leaves and the cover together, and the ornament, which is also attached to one end of the the sting, which also help to tie these manuscripts together. So this is how they bind these manuscripts. So despite the long-standing tradition of writing Buddhist texts on palm leaf manuscripts, the manuscript we have today in Sri Lanka mainly goes back to 16th to 19th centuries. So the oldest surviving palm leaf manuscript that Sri Lanka has is the Puja Baliya, which is a Sinhalese Buddhist literary text, and the Chulavagga Pali, which is the fourth text of the Vinaya Pitaka, and these two manuscripts goes back to 13th century, and these two are the only oldest manuscript that we have in Sri Lanka, and other old manuscripts are from 16th to 19th centuries. So the relatively recent provenance of the extant Sri Lankan palm leaf manuscript serve as the poignant reminder that the challenges of Sri Lankan Buddhists had to overcome preserving their textual heritage for two key reasons. The first one is the delicate nature of the palm leaf manuscripts. We know that these palm leaf manuscripts are highly sensitive to the island humid climate, and therefore the damage effect of the rodents and leaf-eating insects. So these factors limited the lifespan of a palm leaf manuscript. And despite these unfavorable environmental circumstances, Sri Lankan Buddhists preserved these Buddhist texts to repeated recopying. The repeated recopying is more important. Later I will focus on that. And the second fact is the impact of colonialism. So we know that Sri Lanka has a long colonial history from 16th century to mid of 20th century, precisely 1505 to 1947. And therefore in the 16th century, Portuguese destroyed numerous palm leaf libraries in monastic temples and colleges. And in 18th century, British did the same in some part of central province. So therefore, here when we talk about the preservation practices, the first point is more important here. I'm mostly focused on that. So when we talk about the preservation practices in the Sri Lankan context, it is not a neutral technical activity, which is a ritualized, merit-generating act that sacralizes palm leaf manuscripts. So this preservation becomes devotion in the Theravāda Buddhist context in Sri Lanka. So the recopying is more important because of the lifespan of the palm leaf manuscripts. So we know that as we discussed earlier, the writing Buddhist text on palm leaf manuscript goes back to the 1st century BC, according to the Mahavamsa. So therefore, they preserved these Buddhist texts through repeated recopying. The recopying is the strategy for canonical survival. And in particular, in the Sri Lankan context, they believe that recopying is offering to the perpetuation of the dispensation of the Buddha. Because they believe if we want to perpetuate the dispensation of the Buddha, we need to preserve the teachings of the Buddha. How we preserve the teachings of the Buddha? By recopying and preserving these texts to palm leaf manuscript. So therefore, palm leaf manuscript contributing to canonical manuscript creation, donation, recopying is considered a great meritorious act. In particular, when we examine the colophon details of the palm leaf manuscripts that we can observe at the end of the palm leaf manuscripts, so we can identify the aims of the scribers, donors, and then they are not mere like a scribal notes. So it functions as like merit, blessings, and liberation. So therefore, those scribal notes like is living religious statement about manuscript making. So let me discuss few colophon details, and this first colophon is from the Vimati Vinodani Tika, the third sub-commentary of the Samantapasadika, and this was originally in Pali language and is in Sinhalese script, and I have translated it into English. So the scribe of this manuscript is Vais Dhammakanda, which means a Buddhist monk, and he was copied this text from an old manuscript on completed copying on 12 September 1812, and he wishes from the merit by copying this text to presence of the Metteya Buddha, which means the future Buddha, and to listen to his pleasant doctrine and to attain liberation. And also he wishes to become a scholarly monk like Buddha Gosa, Buddha Goswami is the great commentator in Theravāda Buddhism. So you can see their wishes, how they attempted to earn merit, and also the wishes are function with the merit-making culture. In the second colophon is more important, and this scribe wishes to become the omniscient Buddha from the merit acquired by copying this text. So it's considered a great meritorious deed, and that's how this is kind of a religious motivations behind the preserving palm leaf manuscript and Buddhist texts in Sri Lanka. The third one is little interesting because we know that when we consider about the Mahayana and Vajrayana traditions, they deposit manuscript inside the stupas. So, but this is little different from that, because the scribe of this scribe of this text is Ranelihami, which means a lay Buddhist, and he copied this manuscript and housed after having made an inner chamber of pagoda of the Sudharmarama library. This is not a real pagoda, it is like an artificial structure of the pagoda and housed inside the library, which means still people can access it. So, and also we can find some blessing statement at the beginning of the palm leaf manuscript and at the end of the palm leaf manuscript, such as like Swasti Siddham, may there be blessings and fulfillment, and at the end like Siddhirastu, may there be blessings, Subhamastu, may there be happiness, and so on. So therefore, when we study the Theravāda palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka, we can find three types of paratextual utterance, such as blessings and affirmation about benefits associated with Buddhist text, Dharmanisansa, which is really crucial in the Theravāda context in Sri Lanka, and even they have produced some books to describe the significance of donating, recopying Buddhist texts during in Sri Lankan history. So, and in particular, this was very famous during the colonial period in Sri Lanka, and the aspirations. So these are the motivations behind the preservation of palm leaf manuscript, because other people also motivated to preserve these texts by because they can earn merit, and which is considered a great meritorious deed. So let me little focus on the preservation practices, some ritual practices. I am not going to focus here the technical aspect. Mostly I focus on the ritual aspect. So because of the unfavorable environmental circumstances, regular care is more important to preserve the palm leaf manuscripts. So there is a ritual ceremony called oil anointing, that's also called as blackening the manuscript. So this is conducted biannually, which is considered a great meritorious deed. So at the beginning of this ceremony, and even before start this process, people worship to the manuscript, because they consider that this manuscript contained the Dhamma, so the teachings of the Buddha. And this regular anointment protects leaves and done as a devotional duty. So in particular, when you talk with the elderly people of the village, and they say this is a great meritorious deed, and even if they participate for this kind of works, they can also improve their eyesight, and that kind of ideology is also there. So this process helps to remove the dust from the manuscript and also insects from the manuscripts, and it helps to preserve the text. And the second one is the sun exposure. So this is also like a seasonal ritual. Palm leaf manuscript exposed to sunlight for care and blessings. This also helps to remove the dust and also insects from the palm leaf manuscript. This is very interesting because this was conducted during the old Sinhala New Year. Sinhala New Year comes on the 14th April, and the old Sinhala New Year is the 13th April. So this ritual is conducted the old Sinhala New Year, and in particular in the second picture you can see some flowers. So they also offer some flowers because these palm leaf manuscripts represent the teachings of the Buddha, the embodiment of the Dhamma. So that's also kind of a reverence towards these palm leaf manuscripts. However, this ritual cycles renew manuscripts. So also kind of a ritual practice to preserve these palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka. So these are some of the pictures that you can see how these palm leaf manuscripts are housed in Sri Lankan temples. The first picture shows the palm leaf manuscript collections of the Vijayasundararama temple, Askeriya, Kandy, central province of Sri Lanka. Actually, this collection is inside the temple, and these manuscripts are housed with the other religious objects, including the reliquary casket, Buddha statues, and daily rituals also conducted in this place. And in the third picture, you can see a kind of a modern preservation of palm leaf manuscript collection. And the fourth picture also an example for this. This was preserved with the previously mentioned ritual practices, because these monastics believe that this is a sort of a highly meritorious deed by preserving these Buddhist texts. So it is a kind of a devotional practice and sacred duty. So they also preserve this with the other Buddhist texts and other religious objects like the Buddha statues and reliquary casket, and daily rituals like chantings and offering Buddha puja, and all those things are conducting at this place. The second picture is a little interesting. So in the Mahavihara context in Sri Lanka, they believe that this kind of pictures can take only for the leaders of the Sangha, which means here you can see there is a reliquary casket, and also behind the reliquary casket you can see some palm leaf manuscript, which means the leaders of the Sangha is responsible to preserve the dispensation of the Buddha as well as the teachings of the Buddha. Here, the palm leaf manuscript represent the Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. And there is another unique, interesting temples in Sri Lanka. We have Sri Lanka, there are different kind of temples. And there's a particular unique temple for the preservation of palm leaf manuscript for Buddhist texts, that is called Podgul temples, or Podgul Vihara, that is called Podgul Vihara tradition. So this temple is a place, or a sacred place, dedicated to housing complete Buddhist texts or palm leaf manuscripts. So if you visited these kind of palm temples, you can find all the canonical, commentarial, sub-commentarial, and other Buddhist texts. I have visited few of the places for my postdoctoral project, and here you can see the Hanguranketa Podgul Maligaon, it is called Maligaon Palace, and Podgul Vihara. And these temples function as to preserve the Buddhist texts. So they recopy and preserve, and if some places, if someone copy several copies, they also offered those copies to this temple because they preserve all the Buddhist texts in these places. So that is very interesting function when you talk about the preservation of palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka. So in Sri Lankan Theravāda context, they are not considered these palm leaf manuscript as an inanimate objects devoid of life, but as they consider the palm leaf as animate objects, living animate object, because they use this Sinhala suffix Vahansi. I think there are some Sinhalese venerables here, they are very familiar with this. Sinhala suffix Vahanse is a honorific term that they use in Sinhala language. For instance, when you talk about the Buddha, we say Buddhan Vahanse. When we talk about a monk, we say Swamin Vahanse or Sangha Vahanse. In the same manner, this term is also used for the palm leaf manuscript or these Buddhist texts. For instance, when we talk about the chanting palm leaf manuscript, we say Pirit Pot Vahanse. When we talk about the Jataka manuscript, we say Jataka Pot Vahanse. In the same manner, the canonical manuscripts such as Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, they say Diksangi Pot Vahanse, Madhum Sangi Pot Vahanse. In general, canonical manuscript named as Puskola Pot Vahanse La, which means they are given a kind of a living, animate object, something like that. That is very interesting. So therefore, you can see this naming itself enact reverence, so which is also aligns with manuscript with the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha in respect hierarchy. And in particular, when we look at the Mahavamsa, which is the great chronicle of the island, it records some veneration practices. In particular, the King Kassapa in the 10th century, he is sponsored to copy the Abhidhamma in golden plate and venerated and also King Vijaybahu I sponsored to recopy all the canonical texts and venerated and offered to the Sangha. So this kind of practices also you can find from the history of Sri Lanka. So this traditional chanting ritual is very famous in the Sri Lankan culture, Theravāda culture. So at the beginning of this chanting ceremony, in the first picture you can see, this male person carries the palm leaf manuscript or the Puskolapot Vahanse on his head from temple to the house or the chanting pavilion. So it also like carry under canopy or umbrella with the reliquary casket. Reliquary casket represents the Buddha and the manuscript represents the Dhamma and also followed by the monks. So this movement also mirrors sacred processions. The manuscript is also treated as holy presence. And there is another traditional ritual that is called ritual ceremony of Vesantara Jataka sermon. This was very famous in historical period that still this is conducting in some temples in Sri Lanka. And this sermon was conducted according to traditional customs with palm leaf manuscript reverently displaying and venerating, which was conducted at the Puja Pitiya Vatagoda temple. So you can see how these people bring this Jataka palm leaf manuscript from temple to the Dhamma sermon hall with the highly respect. And in particular, this Devaki Nandade studied the paintings of the palm leaf manuscript covers in Sri Lanka, and in his research he pointed out how this palm leaf manuscript function as the sacred objects in some temples in Sri Lanka. So there is the instance he is provided here. He says, when Sri Lankan oldest extant monastic education institute, Paramadhamma Chetya Pirivana, was established at Ratmalana, suburb of Colombo in the early 1800s, it did not have a Buddha image in its shrine room to which daily worship ritual could be directed. Reportedly, monks performed their daily devotion to the Dhamma manuscript instead in order to pay homage to the Buddha. So this is also a good instance about about these ritual practices associated with the palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka. So we know that the Morgan says religions are fundamentally embodied material form of practice. When you look at these ritual practices associated with the palm leaf manuscript in Sri Lanka, we can see how this palm leaf manuscript exemplify this material term. So they are not only carriers of text, but ritualized objects embodying the Dhamma. So when we look at the palm leaf manuscript through the lens of material religion, we stop asking only what do these texts say, and begin asking what do people do with these sacred objects. You can see how people carry these palm leaf manuscript from his head with the highly respect, because it is the Dhamma. And the Sri Lankan village devotees encounter the teachings body, so the palm leaf manuscript. This South Wall research on the Sri Lankan Theravāda Buddhist culture, and he says how the Sri Lankan village people attitudes towards this palm leaf manuscript as the embodiment of the Dhamma. So the palm leaf manuscript as embodiment of the Dhamma is venerated in the same manner with Buddha and Sangha, and as a source of religious knowledge, they use this palm leaf manuscript to learn the teachings of the Buddha and to attain the Nibbana. So then we can see how these dual dimensions function in the palm leaf manuscript. And in particular, we can see some paintings and decorative elements of the palm leaf manuscript covers and the boxes that the palm leaf manuscript house. So you can see in these pictures. I utilize more pictures because in order to like a better sense about these practices. So this Devaki Nandade research about these paintings and all those things, and he says manuscript decoration is devotional side, not mere beautification. Ornament as offerings. Flora motifs symbolizes a real offering to the Dhamma. And then this also like give more like a sacredness towards the palm leaf manuscript and also teachings of the Buddha. So therefore the visual grammar teaches reverences. So let me little focus on some palm leaf manuscript production or the recopying rituals that is deeply related with the Buddhist culture in Sri Lanka, and they have a particular ritual practices that is called like selection of a suitable talipot tree, harvesting rituals, ceremonial cutting, inscription process, ritual preparation, blackening the manuscript, ritual binding and offering, and this is considered a communal act that considered a highly meritorious deed, and therefore Buddhist monks, astrologer, traditional medical practitioner, drummers, laymen and laywomen participated for this activity. So when they producing a palm leaf manuscript, the first thing is that they need to find a suitable talipot tree. So for that they have a particular rituals that is called ritual journey and auspicious day. So they are going, because as I mentioned earlier, there are different kind of palm trees. So they need to find a suitable talipot tree. So therefore they are going to the forest headed by the head monk of the temple and also the traditional medical practitioner, astrologer, and also village elderly people who are capable of identifying the suitable talipot tree. And after they identify the suitable talipot tree, they wrap this talipot tree with a white cloth. This white cloth symbolizes the purity in Sri Lankan culture. And also they offer some flowers, coconut oil lamps, and also even they worship to the palm tree. And at the very first day that they find the suitable talipot tree, they are not cutting the palm bud, and they are deciding an auspicious day to cut the palm bud. Because after that, when people see this white cloth wrapped around the tree, they know that this tree is allocated for a particular religious activity, right? And on that auspicious day, they come to cut the palm bud. So they are also followed by different rituals, monks chanting, and they are worshipping to the tree, offering flowers, incense, and also this traditional drumming. I think the monks also have they know very well about this traditional drumming that is called He Visivadana, right? The traditional Buddhist music playing, and this traditional medical practitioner invoking deities, and with this kind of ritual practices, they cut the palm bud. And after cutting the palm bud, they wrap this palm bud with the white clothes, and then they are bringing this palm bud from shoulders to the temple. You can see how people get together for this activity, because this is a great meritorious deed. And the first thing that they do after bringing this to the temple is that they offer this palm bud to the Buddha shrine or the Buddha, because they are going to inscribe the teachings of the Buddha on palm leaf manuscripts. So, and next, they are bringing this palm bud to under Bodhi tree. You know that the Bodhisattva attained the Buddhahood under Bodhi tree, and they are preparing these leaves under the Bodhi tree. And they are also using different techniques for this making palm leaf manuscript, but I am not focusing on this technical aspect, because many scholars already research about the technical aspect. So ritual aspect is more important. They are using different herbals for seasoning this palm leaf manuscript, and this is how they are doing this process. And the final one, next one is the writing of the palm leaf manuscript, which is also followed by distinct ritual practices. They also start writing this writing Buddhist text on auspicious day and auspicious time, and also monks also chanting before writing, right? And also offer lights, and even they also worship to empty palm leaf manuscript before start writing. And you know that they are using this stylus that is called the panhinda in Sri Lanka for writing. It doesn't have ink, right? And therefore after writing, they need to blackening the manuscripts. That is called netra pinkama. Netra pinkama. This netra pinkama, this ceremony is crucial because in Sri Lankan culture, they use this term because after making a Buddha statue, the final ceremony is called netra pinkama, right? which means making the eyes of the Buddha. The similar ceremony is used for the blackening the manuscripts, because after blackening you can see the text. So that is also the similar ceremony and term is for this blackening the manuscript. And even in Sri Lankan culture, they believe that one letter of a palm leaf manuscript is equal to the Buddha statue. So which also like represent the high regards towards this, right? And they use different materials for this, which help durability and also readability. Maybe the similar kind of practices that can observe in South and Southeast Asian context, but mainly I focus here the Sri Lankan one, and later we can have a comparative discussion here. And the final process is ritual binding and offering, and you can see how they bind with a nice handkerchief. And in the first picture you can see this layman copied a Buddhist text and also offered to the Truth Relic Temple. They can offer to the Buddha or the monks or the Truth Relic Temple or monks or that kind of places, because which is considered a great meritorious deed. So when we look at these ritual practices associated with the palm leaf manuscript culture in Sri Lanka, we can observe the cultural and religious significance of this culture. For instance, it is considered a great meritorious deed. Preservation, producing and recopying palm leaf manuscript are considered a highly meritorious act in Theravāda Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Participants believe act generates a spiritual benefit for themselves and the community, not only for themselves, but also for the community. So merit acquirer reinforces Buddhist principle of dana. In the first picture, you can see how these ladies prepare herbals for seasoning palm leaves for making palm leaf manuscripts. So which is considered a great generosity of dana. And this is a communal process. Either it is a blackening the manuscript or oil anointing or producing. So this process is collective, involving monks, traditional medical doctors, astrologists, and lay people. Rituals foster social cohesion, strengthening tie between temple and village. Shared positive participation transform manuscript production into community ritual, not just a technical task. That is the more important thing, not just a technical task. So these practices reinforce the Buddhist values, such as ritual emphasizes respect for sacred text, because even they worship to the manuscript before start oil anointing and writing. And it also improves mindfulness and ethical living. And the offering of the first leaf at the Buddha shrine symbolizes reverence for the Dhamma. And these practices embody Sri Lankan cultural heritage, blending religion, art, and ecology. And this ritual knowledge and traditional knowledge passed down generations to sustain intangible heritage and local traditions. So let me conclude my talk. The recent scholarship on Theravāda Buddhism highlights the material and ritual circulation of text, emphasizing manuscript cultures and regional diversity. For instance, we can observe this turn from the Routledge Handbook of Buddhist Manuscript Cultures and Routledge Handbook of Theravāda Buddhism. So this lecture also has shown how Theravāda palm leaf manuscript culture illustrates the material and ritual dimension of textual practice. The cult of the palm leaf manuscript in Theravāda Buddhism demonstrates how texts transcend their role as mere carriers of knowledge to become living embodiment of the Dhamma. Through centuries of recopy, veneration, and ritual maintenance, Sri Lankan have preserved not only the Theravāda canon, but also rich cultural and spiritual practices. These practices remind us that the preservation is never neutral. It is an act of devotion, identity, and continuity. Palm leaf manuscript function not only as vessel of doctrine, but as ritually empowered objects whose production, maintenance, preservation, and veneration generate merit and sustain communal identity. Of course, we can find similar manuscript veneration practices across Buddhist cultures, but my main focus was here the Sri Lankan Theravāda context. And these are some of the references that I used for my talk today. And actually this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is my ongoing postdoctoral research project that I am conducting at the University of Hong Kong. And thank you very much. I really appreciate your questions. very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable, for a wonderful talk and informative talk about the Buddhist manuscript in Sri Lanka. And also you cover so many information we haven't heard
Yes,
before.
sir.
Thank you so much. It's very illuminating. So we have a few minutes for a discussion. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Okay. Firstly, thank you so much for your useful talk. And that's mostly very interesting to me and very informative as well. I can learn a lot from that. And also I can find some similarities between the tradition in Sri Lanka and in our country.
Yes.
So my question is that in what way the development of information technology impacts of the habit of preserving and worshiping, just palm leaf manufactured in Sri Lanka?
In Sri Lanka?
Yes.
Actually, they started writing this palm leaf in the original records.
So something like, my question is about the development of information technology, like AI.
Information technology, right?
Yes, influence the habit of preserving.
Right, yeah, actually, that is good question, Honorable. Thank you very much for the question. So the Mahavamsa records that they start writing Buddhist texts on the 1st century BC. But of course, we can assume that, of course, they did have this practice earlier from the 1st century BC. But the written records notes from the 1st century BC, they start to write Buddhist texts on the 1st century BC. But of course, for your question, they started writing texts on palm leaf manuscript before the 1st century BC. Of course, this is not in Sri Lanka, but also it started in mainland India and in this region, right? It has a long history than that. But the Buddhist texts, writing Buddhist texts started in the 1st century BC because they preserved these texts to oral tradition, right? So actually we have the written records on Mahavamsa. So that is the main written records about writing Buddhist texts on palm leaf manuscripts and all the technologies and all those things. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I was curious about your copying the manuscript, right? So in what language are preserving it? Is it Hyber? Is it translated for future generations to really understand maybe 500, 1,000 years later?
Thank you very much. That's a good question. Actually, these Buddhist texts are written in Sinhalese script, but the language is Pali. They use Sinhalese script and written in Pali language. The Pali, right? They use Sinhalese script. In Burma, when they are writing the palm leaf manuscript, they use the Burmese language, right? In Sri Lanka, Sinhalese language, in Thai language, right? Because the Pali doesn't have an alphabet.
Yeah.
So that's why they use this, and not the but of course we have different texts, like canonical texts. It doesn't have original teachings of the Buddha, right? And apart from that, the commentaries, sub-commentaries and other Buddhist texts, and also like explanatory texts also in this palm leaf manuscript. And that is how they preserved this Buddhist text by repeated recopying, as you mentioned correctly. Repeated recopying. One manuscript getting old, they recopied several manuscripts and distributed among different regions. And that's the strategy that they preserve these texts until the present. And now we have modern technology like books and also editing, and we edit the text based on these palm leaf manuscripts nowadays. Yeah.
How did were the methods very similar or identical to transferring it onto palm leaves in ancient India or early Sri Lankan palm manuscripts?
Palm leaf manuscripts.
Yeah.
Actually, they are using similar methods, like technique used writing this palm leaf manuscript, that is like a stylus and also blackening, all these processes. But of course, we can find some similarities as well as differences, because these kind of ritual practices can be differ, something like, right? Of course, some of them are like similar, but some of them are like different. So that's why I'm going to like extend like comparative study about the ritual practices. But mostly the technical aspects are mostly like similar in India. Maybe they have Nepalese manuscript, and recently I'm also like looking at these Sanskrit manuscript and all those things. So they're using similar technique used for writing text in palm leaf manuscripts.
In Nepal, we don't have too much palm leaves.
Yes, yes.
But only paper manuscript.
Yes, yes.
But palm leaf writing is very difficult.
Very difficult.
If you make a break,
Yeah,
palm
yeah,
leaves,
yeah.
it's no use. Right?
Because they are using the stylus. It doesn't have ink, they need to like blackening the
it's almost
manuscript.
like carving. Right?
Yeah, carboning or that type. They use different traditional technique use and herbals and some oils and all those things. Yeah.
There's lots of similarity between our Newari
Yeah, yeah.
tradition, preservation and manuscripts.
So how about the ritual
Yeah,
practices?
we have also ritual like that, especially in the monastery. So every 3 years they rewrite the manuscript. Because every day they use for chanting, right?
Yes.
And then it's worn out. So they have like a rewrite every 3 years during the special extra month. They do rewrite writing. And they do all the ritual
Yes.
before the writing and after writing. And Pranapatista, they also did that one.
Recently, I'm looking at the colophons of this region, and we can find some similarities and differences actually. And also research about the comparative study of the colophon in South and Southeast Asian manuscripts.
So I have one question.
Yeah.
You use the puskola, right? The
Yes.
house built just for the manuscript.
Yeah.
It's very unique. I mean, in Nepal, we don't
Puskola.
have that.
Puskola.
So have you counted how many like puskola in whole Sri Lanka?
I didn't count because there are many collections actually. There are many collections housed in temples and public libraries, and they have catalogs of this palm leaf manuscript. But actually, with my experience, I work on these textual studies and editing and translating. Even though the catalogs mention about the palm leaf manuscript in certain temples, but when we go to the temples, we cannot find the manuscripts. But of course, in Sri Lanka, I cannot exactly say the number, but in Sri Lanka as well as some European libraries, there are huge Sinhalese Theravāda Buddhist manuscript collections. Not only the Sinhalese, but also Nepalese and Indian and all those.
Another question. Another question. So the oldest manuscript is from 13th century. Right? I heard that there's one text in Nepal is older than this one.
Yes.
Kathmandu.
Yeah. I think
That's 8th century.
Yeah. 8th century, right? Actually, I mentioned about the writing of Theravāda texts in the 1st century BC in Sri Lanka. Actually, writing this palm leaf manuscript goes back beyond that, right? It was started in India and Nepal, and they do have older than that.
I think especially
Pali.
started in Third Council
Yeah, because
by the Emperor Asuka one.
yeah,
But
because
why the early manuscript disappeared? Is it because of the war? Or?
two reasons. The first one is that the lifetime of a manuscript is not so long because, as I mentioned here, there are unfavorable environmental circumstances because delicate nature of the palm leaf manuscript is the first. And the third factor is the colonialism, and during
Yeah,
the
they
colonial
destroy
period,
a lot of
they destroy-
Tamil attack on that. Something.
Not the Tamil actually, they didn't, like Portuguese and also some
after the
colonial. It's a little
colonization.
sensitive, but I'm not going to
But
talk.
early manuscripts disappeared.
Yeah, that's also, yeah, that's correct. Because Kalinga Maga and also that kind of attacks also was going on. Thank you very much. That's really wonderful point. Yeah.
That's very sad. You know,
Yeah.
So the Sri Lanka supposedly have like the oldest manuscript of the world, right? Because they started in the first
That's
century.
a good
BC,
point, yeah.
But disappears.
Disappeared, yeah. Many reasons.
The question is like after you recopy the manuscript, the old manuscript, what you doing with that?
All manner, yeah, that's a wonderful question. So, for instance, actually, we don't have exact records about what they are doing, but they also preserve those manuscripts. Maybe perhaps they can house inside the stupas when they build up and that kind of things. But they are not destroying them. So for that question, I cannot give an exact answer because I didn't find anything, but I will look at this. But in Mahayana and Vajrayana context, they have some kind of rituals and also depositions inside the stupas, right? Yeah. And after recopying, they also preserve that text until it decays. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
one last question.
Okay.
Sorry. Maybe we can take two questions.
Okay.
Those who have a class, you can leave.
Okay.
You don't have to wait. Okay, we continue.
Oh yeah, thank you. I will connect question and Does it mean that we make difference between old and the new manuscripts? And old manuscripts, theoretically will be preserved into a shrine or a chamber, and
Yes.
if one will read the text, they read from
Yes.
new copied manuscript.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question, of course, yeah. Usually they house these manuscripts inside the cabinets with the other religious objects. And that question is really good because when they recopy new one, they use it for reading and studying the teachings because we cannot access the old manuscript because it's damaged, right? So it preserved maybe inside the cabinet and inside the shrine and all those places.
And how often will the manuscript be copied? Every 200 years?
Actually, when one manuscript getting decayed old, they recopy the manuscripts. So that's how they do. For instance, you cannot exactly say how, but if one manuscript getting old,
like 50 to 60 years.
the life, according to my research, the lifetime of a palm leaf manuscript is around 600 years. 600 years. So then roughly like when it's getting like 200 or 300 years, so then we need to recopy, right?
In Nepal, 3 years.
3 years, 3 years, after 3 years.
Especially the used one.
Oh, 3 years, yeah. Actually, and also it depends on the donors and the scribers, right? Because they need to sponsor, and because that's why we have a certain merit-making culture through recopying the Buddhist text. So then if you like to recopy, then you can sponsor and start recopying text and offer kind of practice.
And in Thailand, I see, over a river, a small river, and they built a small building,
Yes.
like a shrine,
Yeah.
and they preserve manuscript in this shrine.
Yes, yes.
Is there also the same custom in your land?
In Sri Lanka also the same custom. They also house inside the temples. Yeah.
But not over a river.
No, not over river, but not over river. Mostly in temples, temple libraries, and even these the manuscript palm manuscript library temples. Yeah, that's why this is really interesting. In South and Southeast Asia, we have like a comparative study the other Buddhist traditions. So yeah, I'm not studying comparatively, but next I am looking at to do a comparative study. Yes, yeah. Thank you very much.
I have a very simple question. What type of pen or what type of ink they use in a palm leaf?
Actually, they are using kind of materials like charcoals and some oils. Yeah, actually there are some research about these kind of things. Blackening they use. Yeah, traditional materials. Yeah.
In Nepal, we use like yellow pigment.
Yellow pigment.
Thank you so much, Bhante. You shared very enlightening. We were not aware what was happening there in Sri Lanka. Thank you so much. And very interesting fact that you said that because of colonialism,
Yes.
slow down, and also this modern time, printing press. They don't. I think they don't follow these kind of rituals in
Yes.
printing press nowadays.
Yes.
What kind of challenges, during this industrial and digital revolution? Obviously, they were hampered by the modern revolution. So, I would like to know how they sustain, in this harsh transition.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Venerable. That's very interesting because even though we have this printing text and printing tradition, still this is a kind of a living tradition, right? Writing palm leaf manuscript and preserving is also, even when we talk, actually I did some interviews and ethnographic research for my work. When we talk about the elderly people and monastics, they believe that rewriting and preserving this text is still, they want to continue, right? And also it is considered a still great meritorious deed. Even though we have that, because they have more sacredness towards the palm leaf manuscript rather than books. But in Mahayana, as I remember, they also have it. That's why I use the palm leaf manuscript here specifically, rather than saying manuscripts. So the attitudes, they have their attitudes. In recent time, young venerables and also some institutions are promoting these traditional, cultural, ritual practices and techniques used to preserving local identities, even though we have these challenges. And as you correctly mentioned, even during the colonial period, they face a lot of challenges. But they have a sort of a good motivation to preserve these, even though they destroyed, they this merit-making culture and dharma anisansa and was really famous during the colonial period, and that is how they preserved this. Because you know that you also studied in Sri Lanka, so therefore we know that they also they want to preserve the original form of teaching. So that is really fascinating thing. So therefore, even though we have this digital copies and all those things, still they are continuing this tradition and preserving. Yeah.
The digital CD doesn't last for 600.
Yeah.
Lasts only 1 or 2 years. Right?
But now we have digital technologies and digitizing tools, and we can preserve them, right?
But we miss the ritual and
associated with these practices. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you, Veneration, for a wonderful talk, and thank you everybody who attended today. I wish you all you have a wonderful evening. Thank you. And next week, not next month, March 18th, we have another guest speaker, Dr. Sanjay Barwa is coming to US, and his topic is Bonga Bhumi Dharma, exploring Buddhist transmission in Bangladesh. So please join on the same time, 1 p.m. Wednesday, March 18th. Thank you. Thank you, sir.